Well, 2021 has certainly been a big year for cryptocurrencies. And I think the big question on everyone's lips as we head into 2022 is what's next? We've seen Bitcoin hit multiple new all-time high prices, regulatory talks with potential to have a big impact on the industry. We've seen more institutional buy-in from major companies. And all the while, people's interest in crypto, I think, is just skyrocketing. It's a hot topic, not only among investors, but in popular culture too, around the dinner table, around the braais over the weekend as well. And I think, in no small part to the likes of Elon Musk and many other kind of celebrity endorsers, but also what we're seeing in terms of the industry and innovation being brought to the market by the likes of Revix, which is our next guest, Sean Sanders, CEO and founder of Revix. And it's been a really fascinating year, hasn't it, Sean? If you look in the rearview mirror, what stands out for you?
My word. Hey, Michael. Yeah, no, to say it's been an interesting year is a complete understatement. We have seen the cryptocurrency market grow to be worth $3 trillion. And I mean, I always say, let's put this in context, right? Because $3 trillion has a lot of zeros. What does that actually mean? So if you look at the entire JSE, so every listed company in South Africa on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the total value comes to roughly around $1.1 trillion there. And remember, the JSE actually just hit an all-time high this last week. The entire unlisted market, so all the private companies that aren't listed in South Africa, roughly make up another $1 trillion in the South African system. So that means you've got roughly around $2.1 trillion sitting in the market share of public and private companies in South Africa. The cryptocurrency market is 1/3 bigger than that. So that's the context that I think I need to provide here to say, like, listen, this is big. Like, there is not just Mickey Mouse money flying around in Monopoly land, which is now the crypto world here. This has now turned into a big phenomenon. And there's a lot of big institutions, wealthy investors, smart people entering the space. And yeah, I mean, it's hell of a exciting for the likes of Revix and all the other players looking in the rearview mirror and seeing the growth that's happened over the last 12 months.
If you look at that $3 trillion market cap, that's for all cryptocurrencies out there. And there are lots. It's not just even the top 5 or the top 10. There are so many. So if you break it down by the big ones, the Bitcoins, the Ethereums, how much of the market, the total market cap, do they have out of that $3 trillion market cap?
So Bitcoin has really seen its market share reduced over the last 1, 2, 3, 4 year periods. I mean, you've seen, if you rewind 4 years ago, I mean, Bitcoin roughly made up about 78, 80% of the entire cryptocurrency market. Today, it makes up roughly around 40-odd%, which is a significant decline, 44% to be exact. Ethereum's dominance has increased. It went from being just 6% back then to now close to 1/4 of the entire cryptocurrency market. But I think maybe, again, taking a step back and looking at this entire ecosystem, you've got over 10,000 different cryptocurrencies. Now, there's no doubt that a lot of these are not going to go anywhere. They're going to be complete flops. But there are going to be some real winners in this space and some projects that, become the blockchain superhighways that they're trying to become. I think if you look at the top 10 cryptocurrencies, at least, they make up close to 80% of the entire cryptocurrency market's value. So it's still a very concentrated market. At Revix, we offer our top 10 bundle. And the reason we've put the top 10 in there, not the top 20, is because of how much of the market you're actually able to get exposure to just through the single product. The likes of Uniswap, Polkadot, Cardano, Solana, I mean, these are up and coming version 3.0 cryptocurrencies that are really challenging the likes of Ethereum and Bitcoin in terms of their use case, their scalability, their efficiency. And I think there's a much bigger trend that's going to be taking place now over the next year or two, which is the green side of this entire ecosystem. Bitcoin is known as being a big pollutant, using a lot of energy. And it's got a bad rap in that sense. The likes of Ethereum, Ethereum is going through an upgrade right now that'll make it more energy efficient. So there's going to potentially be a lot more institutional money potentially moving over into the Ethereum world. And then if you look at some of the other cryptocurrencies, the likes of Solana and Polkadot, they're already using a new mechanism to be able to verify transactions, something called proof of stake, which is far more energy efficient. And there actually may be sort of this emergence of green cryptos versus non-green cryptos. And maybe that's an investment strategy in and of itself.
Absolutely. And we've just seen the end of COP26 and all of these funds focused on ESG and the sustainable development goals. It does preclude you, if you're not looking at that, from a big slug of capital out there that is looking to invest. Now, with the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum at the moment, I mean, just shooting the lights out, where do we go from here?
That's the $1 trillion question right there. If you look out over the next 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years, only the heavens know really where this market's going to go in terms of an actual market value. Like, are we going to get to $10 trillion, $20 trillion, $100 trillion? I don't know. And I don't have that magic ball, unfortunately, to be able to tell you. But I do think that this trend that we've seen over the last 10 years will continue. And that is significant growth within the cryptocurrency market. The brain drain that is happening from other industries. I was sort of always use that as a leading indicator. In the early days of sort of the tech boom, you saw a lot of really smart people come from Wall Street and come from other industries, the sciences and all the rest, into the tech space. And you're seeing exactly the same thing happen now in the blockchain and crypto ecosystem. Really smart people coming from other areas. And I think that's only fueling the emergence of new projects. And I just really think that this is the beginning. You look at now this $3 trillion market that exists, this crypto market that is relatively small, actually, it's only making up roughly 30% of all of gold's value. The way you have to look at most investments is to say, well, where can this go? What's the market potential for this? And that's where a lot of investors are getting excited, because should crypto continue to sort of eat away at traditional finance, you're not looking at a $10 trillion market cap. You're not looking at a $20 trillion market cap. You're looking at something closer to 100 trillion. Now, that's not something that's going to happen over weeks or months. That's a long-term investment opportunity. And I think that's what I personally am looking at when I look at the crypto space. There's that, and who knows what that probability is, but there's that upside potential, which excites a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think it's that's the smart way to look at it. It's not how do we trade the daily price moves. There's space for that, and there's arbitrage on different exchanges if you want to get really technical. But I think for a long-term investor, buy and hold, buy and hodl, if you want to use the correct parlance for the crypto space, must be the way to go. And reading all the books that you can about the way decentralized finance is changing the world. It's not just a currency, it's the way it's being used, the blockchain technology that underpins this to reform capital markets. And increasingly, we're seeing even capital markets being disintermediated through these smart contracts and the trust that's built into this. Now, considering all of that, and bringing this back to South Africa and things like Regulation 28. And Regulation 28 is really prescribing how much pension funds can invest in particular asset classes. We've been talking a lot about infrastructure and amending the definitions to ensure that private capital can go into infrastructure. What about cryptos? I mean, what's your view on the fact that pension funds are being effectively kept out of the crypto market?
Well, as somebody that has a fair amount of my own personal wealth in a cryptocurrency business, being Revix, I mean, I feel like, firstly, it's ridiculous on that aspect. And then secondly, for investors at the end of the day, everyday people that want to essentially get exposure to investments that can grow in value. I mean, crypto has been the top performing asset class over the last 1 year, over the last 5 years, and over the last 10 years. Now, that's not to say that a pension fund manager should go out and be reckless and put 10 or 20 or 30% of a pension fund into crypto. No, that's definitely not what I'm saying. But I'm saying a 1 or 2% allocation to this emerging asset class provides a lot more upside opportunity than, in my opinion, the downside risk. Remember, you can put money into crypto, and let's just say this black swan event happens and the market falls to zero. If you've allocated 1% to the cryptocurrency market, you lose 1%. But the upside opportunity, should this grow into this market that we've spoken about, is 10, 20, 30x, right? And it's that asymmetric return opportunity that a lot of South Africans are going to be missing out on. And I do empathize with the regulators. And the reason I say that, and I'm generally not somebody that's very pro saying, let's not innovate and let's not look ahead, but there isn't yet regulation in South Africa that governs crypto. I've been outspoken about that. I mean, it is time that the regulators step up. But if you're sort of looking at this from a sort of Reg 28 perspective, how are you supposed to say, listen, get pension funds, go get exposure to this asset class within the South African context without regulation that actually dictates how cryptocurrency platforms should operate? We've been very open about this. We've spoken with the FSCA, we've spoken with SARB. We've actually gone out to do an independent audit with Mazars to verify that all the assets that we say we have are actually there. And we've been able to prove through reports that we've got them. So I do think that Reg 28 should be revisited in a year or two's time. I think it's a prudent and responsible thing to do. And to say, okay, right, well, which partners or which platforms should I be looking at when actually trying to get exposure to this asset class? I think it's a matter of time. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of other countries, if you look at sort of the developed markets of Switzerland, the UK, the US, I mean, pension funds are encouraged to get exposure to alternative investments. like crypto. And that's not to specify, hey, listen, fund manager, you have to buy cryptocurrencies. It's to say it's an option if you want to get exposure to cryptocurrencies. And I feel like South Africa sort of pulled up the handbrake and gone the other direction, but maybe it's just a short-term thing, or at least that's what I hope.
Well, one does, because we've got that intergovernmental fintech working group and the sandbox that the regulators are making available to the industry to come and innovate. And they're saying, as far as I'm reading it, we want to play this with very kind of transparent, open cards on the table, but it has to be regulated to give those pension funds some kind of comfort, because otherwise you're going to get your AfriCrypts and your mirror trading internationals, and they tend to sour the narrative, I think, for so many. But Revix, I think, has taken a very proactive stance. We spoke about the way you've partnered with Mazars, you audited the whole way through, the wallet safe, all of that, custody is all verified. But it also, for me, becomes a bit chicken and egg, doesn't it, Sean? Like, if you open this up to the pension funds and say, well, you can invest, but you can only invest in these accredited, verified, and registered, exchanges, then maybe you start to drive a bit more regulation through the back door, or self-regulation.
This, again, sort of an interesting topic to explore. I think self-regulation in the crypto space is still better than no regulation. We, again, as Revix, have sort of said, listen, whatever we can do to better regulate the space, we're up for. I think regulators in South Africa, whether that is the Intergovernmental FinTech Working Group, the FSCA, SARB, whatever it may be, they should still be taking a small step forward here. And that small step could just be, hey, listen, public, that's the South African public, these are reputable platforms. We've at least done a little bit of due diligence on them, and then perhaps do a little bit more due diligence later on. That, to me, seems like the most prudent approach. But what seems to be happening at this point in time is that there's a lot of thinking taking place. There's been thinking taking place since Revix's formation 4 years ago, and still no action. And I feel like this is often the case in South Africa, where there's just a lot of, debate and all the rest that takes place behind closed doors, and nothing that's released to the public. And it's the public that gets hurt. So I think it's about time that other platforms in South Africa can go do proof of reserves audits, verify to their customers that they actually have the assets that they say they have. That's a bit of self-regulation in and of itself. If you go to a crypto platform and they're not performing FICA, that's bad. I mean, it's not bad because they're making life easy for you. It's bad because somebody else could steal your identity, and that means steal your money as well.
And that's it. What I'm finding is increasingly consumers are quite savvy and aware, and will naturally gravitate to those providers who are doing the self-regulation anyway. But that doesn't stop us from moving. And I tend to agree with you in so many things in South Africa. We've got plans. If there was a World Cup for speaking about doing things, we would come home with the trophy every time. But it's our implementation and execution that so often does let us down. It's certainly not going to stop the narrative and the industry, broadly speaking, into 2022, with 2021 certainly being a breakthrough year for crypto. So, Sean, I look forward to catching up with you in the new year to find out what the latest trends are. I think we just had Taproot being launched on the Bitcoin chain. So lots going on, and certainly lots to keep the industry and investors very interested into the new year. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Michael. Never a boring day in crypto. All the best.
To the moon. Sean Sanders, CEO and founder of Revix, talking about what has been a breakthrough year for cryptocurrencies and the need for regulators to really start moving. A little more action, a little less talking, please, here on Business Talk.